My name is Celsia, and I'm 17 years old. This scary event happened to me when I was only 10 years old, but I still remember it. I am so freaking scared, thinking about what had happened 7 years ago. Anyways, I was playing dolls in my house when I heard a soft voice whisper behind my ear. I shivered, but I ignored it at first, thinking it was just a breeze coming from the window. I looked at the windows and saw to my shock that they weren't open. But I forgot about it later on. It was only a few minutes later when I heard someone whisper in my ears again. This time, I could make out the words, "Celia, Celia, Celia." I looked around, but there was no one there. Then suddenly I saw a little girl my age looking at me. She had a red skirt on with a white blouse. She looked pretty if only her eyes weren't so dark and creepy. It almost looked like she had no eyeballs. Her mouth opened and I only saw a black hole in it. She called out, "Celia, Celia, Celia, come in to the cellar." It was so scary to listen to her dry and shivering voice, but I just stood still and listened to her. She then disappeared. I then opened the door and walked down the cellar stairs. I saw the little girl again, and this time she was pointing at the ancient-looking wall. She motioned with her hands as if she was tearing something down. I was confused, so I went back upstairs. I went in the kitchen to look for Mother. I found her at the table and told her about the little girl. She grew pale, death pale, after I described how the girl looked like. She became frenzied and so scared I felt like I wanted to cry. But she shushed me and asked where the girl was. I told her down in the cellar, and we both went down there. I said that the red skirt girl was making tearing motions at the wall, and my mother grew even more frantic. She called some carpenters and asked them to tear down the wall in the cellar. They came that same day and soon broke the wall. Inside, we found a small skeleton with a torn white blouse and red skirt. I was scared as had yet at that time. My mother started to cry, saying how her little sister Rose disappeared wearing those same clothes and how everyone was upset, except for her uncle. He was acting more scared and nervous at the time than upset. We then went to Mother's uncle's house and found him there. When we told him about the hidden body, he nearly fainted but wouldn't say anything. Finally, he broke down and said that he tried to molest, sexually harass, the little girl when no one was looking, and Rose tried to run away. He was afraid that she would rat him out, so he killed her and hid her body behind the wall of the cellar. There once was a family of 5, 3 children and 2 parents, who loved their kids with all their hearts. This family lived in a nice home in a quaint little town called Bakerston. Their lives were simple and pleasant, and Bakerston was an unusually peaceful town that had little to no crime. One of their children, the eldest daughter, was named Felicity, and she was very good at watching her little brothers, Raymond and Rory. So, occasionally their parents would go out for the night and have Felicity watch her brothers until they got back. Felicity was very good at this. She would always play a game similar to hide and seek. She'd stand in the living room with her hands over her eyes and say, "Children, children, all around, run before you can be found. For I am on the loose today. Hide before I can say." Then she'd wait, listening to their rustling feet as they would hide. She'd search the house looking for them, and when she got close, she'd wait right outside the place she knew they were hiding, and she'd say, "Boo." When they heard this sound, they would know that she was close, so if she was correct, they would have to reply with the words, "Hello, Felicity," and she'd scoop them up and hug them. If the other child was close enough that they heard these words, they were allowed additional time to find a new spot. And then Felicity and the found child would look for them together. The children absolutely loved this game, and they insisted that she play it with them every time they were together. One night, recently after their parents left, Felicity and the boys were relaxing in their home. The boys were in their rooms, off of the living room, and Felicity was in the living room reading. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking at the door. Felicity, thinking it might be her parents and that they would be upset that the boys weren't asleep, she rushed to the intercom system that allowed anyone in the living room to speak to all the rooms in the house. The boys had one in their room too. This made it so that no one had to yell from room to room in the house. She pressed the button and said quietly, "Open your door and get underneath your covers. I think it's Mom and Dad. Pretend to be asleep." Then she went to answer the door. The boys did as they were told and got beneath their covers. They heard the door open, but no other sounds. It was quiet. Then the intercom beeped, which meant someone was on the other side. A voice said, "Children, children, all around." The little boys shivered. It was Felicity, and she sounded scared. She had spoken at a whisper, and they became frightened. They stayed in their beds, still scared. Then, "Run before you can be found." They glanced at each other in horror. "For he is on the loose today. Hide before I can say." "She wants to play the game," Rory whispered to Raymond. They waited a few seconds. Then it came on again. "Children, children all around." Silence. "Run before you can be found." Silence. "For it is on the loose today. Hide before I can say." The boys quickly decided that they needed to hide. They crawled to their favorite place, which was a broom closet in the hallway that Felicity claimed was too small to fit in. But the boys knew it wasn't. She never found them there. She always called quits if either of them chose that spot. They quieted their breathing and listened for sounds. They heard a soft shuffling of feet, but that was all. They stayed in the closet a long time. Suddenly, though, another sound filled their ears. Thud. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Thud. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Thud, thud, thud. The sound got closer and closer and closer and closer. They heard Felicity's voice whisper, but it seemed to come from throughout the house. "Children, children all around, run before you can be found, for I am on the loose today. Hide before I can say." Silence. Then, in the softest whisper of all, right outside the closet, they heard, "Boo." Rory opened his mouth to say, "Hello, Felicity," but Raymond closed his hand over Rory's mouth. It was silent for a long time. Then, from Raymond and Rory's right, inside the closet, a voice was heard. "Hello, Felicity?" Rory and Raymond turned ice cold, but they didn't move. Outside the closet, Felicity started to cry. Then, in tears, she said, "New game? Rory is it." That same night, the parents of Rory, Raymond, and Felicity came home to a devastating sight. On the table was a letter that had apparently been opened by Felicity that said, "I want to play your game. I'm in the children's room. We'll all play together." They proceeded to look throughout the house for their children. They couldn't find them that night. The next night, they found Rory. His eyes were sewn shut, and he was jammed underneath the kitchen sink covered in blood. The day after that, they found Raymond. His eyes were sewn shut, and he was shoved underneath his bed covered in blood. The day after that, they found Felicity. Her eyes were sewn shut, and she was squished inside a cupboard. The deaths were mourned, and their bodies were buried. A week later, another body was discovered. A missing mortician was found crammed inside the hallway closet with his sewing kit clutched between his cold, dead fingers. The thud-thud, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle the children had heard had been the sound of Felicity bumping into walls. She had been looking for them, and she couldn't see because her eyes had been sewn shut. Years later, it was said that the soft calling of Felicity's voice could be heard, calling the word to the children's hide-and-seek rhyme. Children, children, all around, run before you can be found. For I am on the loose today. Run before I can say, boo. Creepy. Okay, guys, remember to check out my other stories, please.